Hello and welcome to Solely Singleton, episode 181. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
We have a long-awaited episode for you guys. It is time to talk about Modern Horizons 2.
Yeah, it's that time. It's the postmortem. It's the let's talk about cards that we've tested.
But what if it wasn't a postmortem? What if we hoard ourselves out instead and turned this thing into a top 10 list so that it works better on YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's possible.
So, MH2 is obviously a set with a lot of interesting cards in it. And we'll at least mention a bunch of honorable mentions for that. But a few of them stand above the rest in how popular they were. And it coincidentally worked out to be almost exactly 10. And I can't help myself. So, without any further ado, let's jump into this betrayal of your trust.
Yeah, if only we were making money from this sellout. But sounds good.
So, before we get into the betrayal proper, let's quick shout out a bunch of other cards that a lot of people wrote in saying they liked and tested well for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those that Modern Horizon 2 did have a lot of interesting cards, but we did get a lot of sets since then, actually. So a lot of these kind of lost focus or were replaced.
Yeah, it's like when we talked about it in my Cube Update episode, where there's a lot less ubiquity in what people are looking at of new sets because we've just hit such a huge amount of playable cards. You're no longer looking for, oh god, I really wish I had a red 3-drop.
Yeah.
You're now like, impress me, red 3-drop.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not even just that. It's like, impress me, red 3-drop that fits into these archetypes.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, so we do have a bunch of interesting cards that didn't really make the top 10, but people brought up and generally liked. These are things like, actually, I'm a huge fan of Barbed Spike. That's one that I actually really do like. And it got reasonable reviews, but it was not amazing or overwhelming, and people did cut it for other things.
And then we've got stuff like Sarah's Emissary and Esper Sentinel in white for just general usage. I know a lot of people have pointed to Sarah's Emissary as a great recommendation for newer players over someone like Elishanorn, because it doesn't come with the fact that Elishanorn hasn't been reprinted in, what, a decade?
Another one that, so this is actually an interesting one, Damn was printed.
Which is a white card.
I agree, but there was some debate on that. There were a few people that said they ran it in black. There was one that said they ran it in multicolor.
Yeah, I read the emails, but it's not up for debate.
I agree that it's white. I see a defense in multicolor if you're pushing not so much equality in your multicolor sections, just as like, these are multicolor focused cards and they're not equal of like, Azorius is the same count as Gruul. It's just, these are the, this is the card set that I have that's multicolor and Dam's going in that set. That makes sense to me, but it's a Wrath that has an upgrade, so.
Then in blue, we had a couple things, especially because they weren't rares.
Yeah.
Hard Evidence, Lose Focus, just as general cards that were quite popular, especially again because of rarity, and just being very good at their jobs.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like Hard Evidence. I'm just a sucker for that one. But speaking of rarity, Bone Shards made several of the lists, but wasn't a complete standout for anything either.
Yes, and then there's obviously Grief, which is part of the whole exile from hand cycle.
Evoke cycle, I guess it would be.
Sure, we'll be talking about a couple of them in the top 10. But Grief, just shy of the cut. Seems like some people did like it, other ones not so hot on it. I threw it in my cube, but I haven't had much testing time with it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that ends up. I think it's going to be one of those that, like, it gets replaced and it's fine. But Profane Tutor was brought up a few times, and I was shocked at how much people liked it for the not being the best tutors, but also not being trash. So, interesting to have that as an option.
Yeah, and then there was the duo of Persistent Unmarked Grave, which kind of would have made the top 10, honestly. They were pretty universally liked, but it felt awkward to put one of them on but not the other. So here's both of them. They were very well liked. You can put them at number 11 in your head if you want.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody was just basically like, did you read the cards? Is your cube trying to do that? Good job. We did have an interesting one in Unholy Heat, particularly, I think, because it's the common. But yeah, there was some interesting delirium cards for rarity restricted cubes.
Yeah, and I can see people saying like it's a very good creature removal spell at 1-drop versus like Flame Slash.
Right.
But I'm not sold on it. It didn't get enough positive praise for me to like go screw it, I'll try it.
Yeah.
But I can see where people are at on it. I get the arguments for it.
I kind of wanted Brea's Apprentice to get more reviews because I think it's cool, but we actually didn't get that many.
No, and I'm the artifact guy, and even I was not super thrilled with it in what little testing I got with it.
Yeah.
Like,
which is...
There's a reason it's not in my new list, and I put the artifact deck back.
Right, which is kind of disappointing, but maybe some other people will get some benefit out of it if you give it a shot.
And then in green, the only one that isn't top 10 worthy that did get discussed was Endurance, which, again, part of the Evoke cycle, and it's definitely
It's a constructed card that can kind of work in cube if you're interested in that type of thing, but it's a constructed card.
I will say on Hot Takes, I called it as, like, going to be amazing in Legacy.
Yeah.
Nailed that one.
Yeah.
And then we can move on to, finally, in Colorless, there was the pair of Ornithopter of Paradise and Liquid Metal Torque, both of which were mana producers. One's a dork, one's a rock, but you get the point.
There was more love for Ornithopter, basically saying that, yeah, this 2-mana birds that's colorless and an artifact is actually pretty good in a lot of decks, and also amazing in the artifact deck.
All right, but enough of the lukewarm, generally positive stuff. Let's get into the big hitters.
So, yeah, I mean, I know you said we're going to do a top 10.
Oh, you're wondering what order to put them in? So let's break this down. We're a cube podcast for Magic the Gathering. So we should do this in an interesting, unique way. Let's do Wooburg order.
Just, here's 10 cards that are the best and they're in Wooburg order. Okay.
Yep.
You know what? Okay, Brad. Let's start with Solitude.
We're really bad at clickbait.
Even when we try, we're bad at it.
So yes, Solitude was by far the most beloved white card. Like,
yeah,
it was not close.
There was nothing bad said about this other than it might be too strong for some cubes, and I'm not entirely sold on that, but it was generally very positive.
Yeah, when something's removal, I tend to have a much higher threshold for what I'll allow.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like, we have pretty good removal already.
Yeah, and removal's allowed to be at, like, common and uncommon without much issue.
Exactly.
So it's not like even rarity restricted has to care about it too much.
Yeah, there's always cubes out there that have a very specific niche in power level, but I think this one should be fine if you're doing this type of stuff. It was interesting that most people were like, the Evoke is an emergency. You're doing this for the value most of the time because you can have other white cards that do the emergency mode better.
Yes. And I think that's the case with all of the Evoke cards. Can't even say much like Force of Will, because Force of Will is really bad at 5 mana, right?
Yeah.
No one wants to cast 5 mana counterspell. These cards are that, but it's even, your 5 mana mode is much more normal than with Force of Will.
Yeah, it's almost to like the flipped point of like Force of Will, you're always paying the cheat cost, and you're like, 5 mana, I guess I may as well.
Force of Will exists for emergencies, whereas these exist for value, but have their emergency mode.
Yes, exactly. And I think Solitude fits that just perfect of like, this is going to be fine in your any deck that's playing white that is going to cast a 5-drop. And like, yeah, there's an emergency mode of, oh shit, I need to deal something. But this is a 5-drop that, I mean, a flash 3 power lifelink is not nothing. So, yeah, generally just a very good card. Solid all around.
And then we can move on from white
to something that's actually a little bit more interesting in blue. We've got Murktide Regent, which is 5 blue for a 3/3 dragon with Delve, flying. Murktide Regent enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each instant and sorcery card exiled with it. Whenever an instant or sorcery card leaves your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Murktide Regent.
So you said more interesting. I would like to rebut that. So I've tested Murktide Regent now. I've gotten some reps with it.
Yeah.
In a screwed up way, it's like I got what I wanted and I hate it. It's so boringly correct. I don't know how to say it. Like, it is the summation of like Delve's end point.
Yes.
Like, it makes everything else irrelevant.
Yeah, I think that's why it's interesting to me, is because it feels very, this is Delve's end game creature. Like, this is it. This is what we do with Delve to get a blue creature. And that's cool. I do actually kind of like the play pattern with, like, you have to think about which instants and sorceries you're going to leave and which Delves. And there is some play to that.
I think it's less than I wanted. It just ends up being your big dumb idiot that also just happens to have flying.
Yeah. And is cheaper to cast in late game. So, yeah.
The problem is, like, you just leave a very good spell in the yard that you're going to snap back or whatever later, and you still get the value out of it then.
Yes. Which is good.
To me, it takes away from the choice.
It does take away from the choice. I mean, it's definitely better as written, but if there was that opportunity cost of, like, you only get the +1/+1 counter when you exile it with this, there would be a little bit more, like, upfront choices.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that this card is bad either.
No,
the card is fucking bananas.
Yeah. I did enjoy that one person was like, yeah, I just played this and stonewalled the Carnage Tyrant. You know?
Yeah.
Because it could do that, you know?
I just have very mixed opinions on this card of, like, I identify it as a strong Magic card. It's in a deck that I approve of.
It's exactly what you want. On the
surface level, even though it works in everything. Like, it just seems so right for me, and then I play it and I'm like, this is wrong.
This is too efficient and good at its job. I feel like, yeah, I see what you're saying, but at the same time, like, it's not too good for most cubes, I don't think. Like,
right. I don't think it's too good for, like, any generically powerful cube. It's just more boring than I had imagined.
Fair enough. Are you gonna take the next one as boring as well, Brad?
No. The next one is for me. Up next is Archon of Cruelty, which is a whopping 6 black for a 6/6 creature Archon with flying, and when Archon of Cruelty enters the battlefield or attacks, target opponent sacrifices a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, and loses 3 life. You draw a card and gain 3 life.
Seems good.
It's so good. It's so good.
So there were several lines of second best behind Griselbrand or something like that.
Yeah. I like it more than Grizzle.
And then one of the last emails that I read was like, Griselbrand, step aside. And I was like, oh, hold on.
Yeah, that's who I agreed with. I like this card. This card is less combo oriented than Griselbrand is.
And that's kind of where it's at, is like Griselbrand is more powerful in the time that it works kind of thing of the combo.
Mm-hmm.
But Archon of Cruelty is more powerful, just generic board state. You played it in reanimating it, whatever, at some point in time.
Yeah. And man, it's so good. Like, I know Reanimator is what we're all pointing to, but sneak attacking this.
Oh, yeah?
Like, sneak attack needs help. Like, you gotta help sneak attack because it's rough compared to show and tell and just general reanimation.
I would argue that sneak attack is not really a viable strategy anymore unless it's a pet strategy. But
we keep it because you can run sneak and show, like in a whole reanimate or a rug cheat into play package with Eureka, all that jazz.
It works as a one card alternate kind of thing, yeah.
But Sneak Attack can be upgraded nowadays.
Yeah.
Archon of Cruelty does the perfect thing that Titans do with Sneak Attack, where it's the ETB or attack.
Hell yeah, dude.
Meaning you get 2 whole triggers of opponent sacks a creature or planeswalker, discards a card, loses 3 life. You draw, you gain 3 life.
That's a massive change in the board state and available resources for life and cards in hand.
Yes.
Like,
But yeah, this is without a doubt my number 1 in the entire set. Like, it's not close. There are cards that are probably better. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Ragavan's in the set, like, arguably efficiency.
I don't give a shit.
It's the best card. But I see what you're saying of it's, especially since it's been so long since Gristlebrand.
Mm-hmm. And I liked Villas too.
Yeah.
Like, this card replaced Villas for me. Villas was like clearly not as good as Grizzlebrand, but hey, it's okay.
Yeah, it was good enough that it would be in contention of cubes, but I do like having the option of Archon of Cruelty being up there, like truly tangoing with Gristlebrand, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move into the color that gets the most spots on this list.
The best color, some would say.
Not me.
I would say that.
All right, so back to white.
We've got, yeah, that's it. Yeah, definitely. Definitely the best color in Magic. We've got Fury, which is 3 red for a 3/3 elemental incarnation with double strike. When Fury enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers, and it has evoke, exile a red card from your hand. So this is the red evoke part. And yeah, it's good. So a lot of these red cards
are boring.
A lot of very good red cards are difficult to talk about in depth because it's like, did you read the card? Do you understand what being aggressive means? Can you add 1 and 1 and understand that 2 means they're dead? And it does feel a lot like that. One of the big things with Fury is that double strike is quite a problem for opponents to deal with when you're the aggressive one with double strike, just because lining up blocks for a 3/3 double strike is actually pretty difficult even in cube.
What is there to say? It's a boring red card that's super efficient. It's probably red's best 5-drop at this point.
It's tough, but it's definitely something to talk about. Like, there's positive and negatives in there, but it's definitely up there. The evoke is actually pretty big on this one, just because
yeah, absolutely.
It's 4 damage as you divide. Like, no matter what you want to do, you swing that 4 damage around to any creatures or planeswalkers, and that's just really strong, even for 2 cards, Fury and exiling another red one. So yeah, just altogether, this does exactly what you want as your end game 5-drop with alternate casting abilities. So yeah, it's just a good card.
Let's talk about a much more interesting card.
Yeah, and I do actually think this one is interesting.
I do too. But anyway, Dragon's Rage Channeler is a single red mana for a 1/1 creature human shaman. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Surveil 1. I'm already in. It also has Delirium. As long as there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, Dragon's Rage Channeler gets +2/+2, has flying, and attacks each combat if able. So yeah, like, I just love surveilling in general. I like a red card that can be used in a slower deck and have good excuse as the sort of like speed bumpy, filtery type of card. And then it just gets big.
Well, and like, the thing is like,
it works perfectly fine in red decks. Like, when you want to play red aggro,
you don't have to be in the slower red decks. Like,
no, that's just my excuse to care about it, unlike our next card.
Yeah, like, you can play in the Is It Spells deck on any of the spectrum of super aggro, get them dead, all the way to I'm going to grind to turn 10 and just outvalue you. And it's just solid in like a red deck win strategy of churning through your deck to get rid of the dead draws when you're casting your lightning bolts. And a 3/3 flyer, sweet. It honestly plays in just about every deck pretty reasonably well. There's a few that are a bit shakier, like it's a bit tough in like a Gruul deck because that's generally more creature heavy. But even then, like, it could be okay.
Yeah, I can't say like Gruul midrange is where I would play this card, nor is it something I've thought of doing with this card.
Right. But it fits in a lot of other places. And it also does something that's not common in red, which is filtering your top cards, your draw, making it better type thing, especially on a 1-drop. Like, that efficiency of getting rid of dead draws essentially matters quite a bit when it's tacked on to a creature that has other stuff to it. So yeah, I really quite like Dragon's Rage Channeler, and I expect it to be around for quite a while, honestly. Like, even with the amount of power creep that we get, this does a unique thing that I expect it to be around for a while.
All right, let's talk about the monkey in the room.
Okay, we've got Ragavan. Ragavan, Nimble Pilferer, is a single red for a 2/1 legendary monkey pirate. Whenever Ragavan Nimble Pilferer deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token and exile the top card of that player's library. Until end of turn, you may cast that card, and it has dash for 1 and a red. Most people were like, yeah, this is probably the best card in the set. It's good. It seems solid. There was one person that was like, I don't run it, and I'm probably not missing anything. I know it's good, though. That sums up everything to me. Like, this is clearly a strong, aggressive 1-drop in red, but like, okay.
I remember being angry about this card on Hot Takes.
Yeah.
Like, it's really fucking dumb that this is clearly here to make this set look like it's worth being in, like, what, $15 boosters or whatever the hell it sold for?
Something like that, yeah. Like the mythic symbol is...
It's utter bullshit. In no way is this random-ass monkey mythic other than we threw so much power on this 1-drop it never should have been printed.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's mythic.
And it's one of those that, like, it's tough because they've done that enough with mythics that, like, the whole, like, oh, mythics are going to be the splashy things. That just doesn't... That's no longer how design works. That's no longer how mythics work. But there's still... There should be, like, a base threshold of, like, this is very clearly a mythic for monetary reasons. Nothing else.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we play Cube. So, yeah, it's good in Cube. I mean, if you don't want to spend the money on it, though, there are enough comparable aggressive 1-drops in red that you do not need it. And you will not miss it.
There is also some $2 Ragavan somewhere on Earth if you speak Chinese.
Or just take a mountain and a Sharpie. Whatever. We can move on. We can move to green, which actually has more than one card. Wow.
It does. Now, it's kind of weird because one of these is technically a reprint, but it's...
Sure.
First up, though, let's talk about Ignoble Hierarch. Like, the only other thing in competition with Archon for me. I like Noble Hierarch. It's okay. Ignoble Hierarch, I love. So, Ignoble Hierarch is a single green mana for a 0/1 creature goblin shaman. It has Exalted, and it has tap, add black, red, or green.
I'm all in.
What if Noble Hierarch couldn't tap for blue, which is always the most annoying part of it? Couldn't tap for white, so it's in already a better color.
Yeah.
And was a goblin, who is adorable as shit.
That goblin shaman with the art, I'm like, yeah.
I'm not like a huge Mark Zug fan. Like,
but this nailed it.
He's okay. I'm not like a big boomer, but damn, I love this art.
This fucking nailed it, dude. It's pretty obvious to anybody who plays Cube, this is a good card.
Yeah, like we already had this card. It was called Noble Hierarch.
Yeah, it's doing the same thing except slightly different and in a good way. Like, you play them both, and yeah, it's just good. And I don't think it's expensive, is it? I hope it's not.
It's less expensive than you would think.
$3.
Yeah, it's nothing like Ragavan.
That's
it is
awesome.
Unfortunately out of range for my budget cubes.
Maybe close.
I think I fit it in the last Miser's cube. I'd have to check.
Yeah, I was like, it's at least close enough that like I could tell people like, hey, it's kind of budgety, which is awesome for many reasons. But
it is sitting in the Miser's cube, so sweet. It gets to stay there a bit longer.
Yeah. I mean, Ignoble Hierarch is just good.
You've played it for 10 years. This is the new one.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the weird one.
Yeah, I don't... Okay, I'll just read the card and then we can talk about it. We've got Abundant Harvest, which is a single green for a sorcery. Choose land or non-land. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a card of the chosen kind. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order.
So, Eric, do you know where this was first printed?
I'm trying to remember what set special thing had the name in Japanese on the left.
You are incorrect.
Really?
Yes. This was from Strixhaven. It was the promos where the cards were all spells, and this was the new card in the list. That was not actually part of like the set or anything.
I think there were 2 promos for Strixhaven.
Oh, there was a Japanese one. You're right. Japan got exclusive versions. You're correct, Eric.
Yeah, I was like, there's no way I'm this wrong.
Oh my God. I didn't realize Japan got... You're right, because that's where the one that I think of as a Judge promo, because I think that's how it originally leaked. But that's that one, Demonic Tutor.
Yes.
So you were actually correct. Holy shit, I had forgotten that Japan got a weird version of the promo.
I remember it because all of those arts
are much better than the American ones, yeah.
Yeah, and like they hit like all of those like weeb tendencies, and I'm like, dude, I want to spend way too much money on these cards, and I don't know how to read any of them.
Fuck, Eric was right. Holy shit. All right, never mind. I take it back. Genius.
Yeah, I mean, I never would have gotten it with Strixhaven because Strixhaven.
I only knew it from the Strixhaven other part, not the promo that was actually in Japanese.
Yeah, so this is a bit weird to talk about, but it wasn't actually like a readily available card because it was just promo-y.
More importantly, we did not know its rarity yet, which is why this is so important.
Right. That is true, because all of the promos are...
They all had rare symbols, but were just promo rarity.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, whereas it's actually common. Woo.
Yeah. And it's probably just the best cantrip green has access to. Like, your other one is at rare, and it's like Nissa's...
Oath of Nissa?
Oath of Nissa.
Yeah. I was trying to remember if that was rare or not.
It's rare.
Weird.
And I don't know if I like Oath of Nissa even better than Abundant Harvest, because if you're going to play that, do you want it to be the enchantment with a flavor text I like, but essentially flavor text? Or do you want it to be a non-permanent?
So it's one of those that, like, I have tried pushing the enchantments theme. It doesn't really work, and I keep trying it, and one of these days it's going to work. I keep telling myself that.
It won't. After the last time I tried it, I've sworn it off. It will never work.
Yeah, probably not. But I do quite like Abundant Harvest because you kind of just like choose what you need kind of thing and search for it instead of just being like, I get the best of
Hope I get it on the ponder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But honestly, they're both pretty good. It's just the problem for me is I'm not a huge fan of that in most green sections. I feel like you should just splash into blue if you're playing in cube for that effect.
I strongly disagree. I like giving green that.
And that's fair.
I'd much prefer to not have everyone splash blue in order to get card selection. Like, it needlessly warps everyone more towards 5-color.
To me, at least, I think of green card selection as like Green Sun Zenith, like the creature tutors, essentially. Not just like more generic card selection, like Ponder.
I mean, the reason it's land, non-land is its abundance. Like, it is one trigger of abundance.
Yeah, I mean, that is exactly what it is. It's good at what it's doing, and it's common. So if you have interest, give it a shot.
All right. Up next, we have the surprise for me.
Not for me.
I know. You were the believer.
I saw that text and I was like, dude, somebody breaks this somehow.
So up next is Grist the Hunger Tide. Grist the Hunger Tide is 1 black green for a 3 loyalty legendary planeswalker Grist. As long as Grist the Hunger Tide isn't on the battlefield, it's a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. It has a +1 of create a 1/1 black and green insect creature token, then mill a card. If an insect card was milled this way, put a loyalty counter on Grist and repeat the process. It has a -2 of you may sacrifice a creature when you do destroy target creature or planeswalker. And it has a -5 of each opponent loses life equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. So Grist is definitely much better than I thought it was going to be, and I like it a lot.
I think it might be one of my favorite Golgari cards.
It is definitely in first place for my Golgari section for cards I like, other than maybe Vraska Relic Seeker, but I have a hard-on for that card, and we all know it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's just one of those, like, okay, Grist, it feels like there's so much possibility that you think you're reading and understanding everything wrong, that it obviously can't do those things. And then you play it and you're like, oh, I guess it does this and that and this. And none of those things are busted, broken.
None. It never is impressive in a single moment.
Right. But all of those things in this package on a 3-mana walker, it does what Golgari is trying to do. Like, everything about it hits those spots. The fact that it's a creature outside of the battlefield means that you get to search for it with creature tutors.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge.
It also means that whenever, not just like creature tutors like Green Sun Zenith, but for things like Birthing Pod,
like natural order,
this is crazy utility to add into a Birthing Pod deck. Like, sacrifice your 2-drop, go get Grist is not a line that Birthing Pod had in mind.
It's not the line that anybody expects. And I think that's why I love Grist so much, is that there's a lot of things that it does that people just don't expect. You don't play around Grist.
Again, it's not that it's the highest impact card. It's that it's a 3-drop planeswalker, and it's actually perfectly balanced for a cube environment.
Yeah.
Like, it does what your green-black deck wants to be doing, and importantly, it meshes well with that deck, which is something that planeswalkers tend not to do.
So it's just one, and like, it's hard for me to truly explain why I love Grist so much, because like you keep saying, like, no single point is like that's it. That's the reason that Grist is cool. It's all of these things that are small and interesting that work towards goals that you generally are trying to do in the decks that are going to play it. All of that put together feels so right. Even in a vacuum, all of the abilities generally work together. I just love it. I love it, and more people should play it. And like, we got great feedback as well. Like, this is probably the best story related card that we got really on. Like, people are just like, oh, I did this and my play group did that, and like, it's fun, dude. It's just fun.
Talking about it right now, it jumbled a story out of me of remembering that the double delirium mattered.
Yeah, which, when the hell does that happen? Like, but these kinds of things just come up in cube environments, and that's cool. But we do have another card on the list, Brad.
Yeah. Blazing Rootwalla.
No.
You know, it was really narrow, but it just squeaked into that top 10. Oh, it's not.
No. I know that you love your Blazing Rootwalla Vengefine nonsense, but you're kind of alone in that little island of degeneracy.
I can't even put it in honorable mentions. It's a me.
Yeah.
It is for me. Okay, so the actual last card here, Eric.
The actual last card is Urza Saga. Urza Saga is an enchantment land. Urza Saga.
Double delirium.
You're not wrong, but people were playing this or reviewing this with constructed blinders, because at least one of the reviews was, this was highly picked, but we really didn't know why.
Yeah, and that does occur. To me, this card is insane, but I also, again, Karn Scion of Urza is probably my second place favorite walker in colorless. Like, I like it better than 8-drop Ugin or 7-drop Karn.
Yeah.
And so I know how good Karn constructs can be.
Constructs.
Karns, I hate that. But I know how good those can be. And like the fact that you don't lose the things you got originally, it always taps for a mana.
Until you sacrifice it, yes.
Yeah. So you've got the default state, but to be honest, we really don't care about the default state because we're going to abuse number 2 as hard as possible.
Yeah.
You get to make 2 constructs out of this.
You mean constructs?
No. Stop it. You get to tutor a bauble, like 0/1 drop, whatever. To be honest, like most of the time I'd be picking up generic rock of some type, like Everflowing Chalice, or something dumb like Retrofit or Foundry.
Yeah, I mean, or grab like a Walking Ballista.
Sure.
Like there's enough fine options, but you're not breaking anything unless you're in power.
Yeah. But again, I play the artifact deck, so I get so much value out of getting the Karnstruct tokens. There you go. I said it. Are you happy?
I am happy.
Okay. It's wrong. It's wrong, and I feel bad.
You know it's the best, right?
But I get so much extra value out of those in my cube that I rate this very highly. But I'm aware that in a generic cube, it's still a great land.
Yeah, I do think it's
solid. a land that you kind of have to put in a spell slot. But in a way, I would argue that makes you make your deck a little better on purpose.
Yeah, it's generally not a bad idea.
Like when you're debating going down a land, or you really know you should go up a land, but you don't want to listen to the rational part of your brain, this makes you do it.
It can help. It can also lead you to ruin, but
yeah,
there honestly isn't that much. It's fairly positively reviewed, and it's well reviewed for, hey, are you trying to push artifact decks? Play it kind of thing.
To me, I was very against it on Hot Takes. I remember this because someone had to correct me afterwards. I was unaware on turn 3 you could use it to make another construct token.
Yeah, I do remember that now.
Yes.
I brought it up because I was like, I think this seems good. And you were like, no. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm wrong because you're the person.
Because I'm the artifact man.
Yeah, like you're the artifact guy. So clearly I don't know what I'm talking about.
But I'm not the saga guy.
No. Or the reading guy.
I am definitely not the reading guy. We have 180 other episodes proving this.
Yeah, it's documented. Yeah, so it's one of those, like, I've seen that Urza Saga has done reasonably well in other formats and stuff, and I have concerns that some people will try it with that expectation of, like, oh, it's going to be amazing. I don't have the artifact deck. Oh, why is it not so good?
I still think it will be good. I think you can't expect it to be a miracle worker.
Right.
In just a generic deck. It will still be very good. Like, up there with other quote-unquote manlands, slightly different.
The colorless manland things.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've tried a lot of those, and they're generally not good, other than, like...
This is definitely the best one, to be honest. Fuck Mistress Factory and people who like it. Fuck Mutavault more.
No, screw you, dude. Mutavault's good.
Mutavault's garbage.
No,
Hot
Mutavault's
trash.
Good. No, you're wrong. But, yeah, I do like Urza Saga, and I think it definitely has a spot in a lot of cubes.
All right, so that completes the top 10 best cards for Modern Horizons 2.
Wow.
Number 7 blew your mind.
What was number 7?
I don't know.
Oh, it's ignoble. I was like, was number 7 fucking Ragavan?
It probably would have been better if I had said 6 then. Damn it. All right, that's enough clickbaiting you all. Let's get out of here.
Sounds good.